Welcome, Vols and Lady Vols, to Power T Talk. Last week, Zack jumped in with a solo episode. I had a couple of family things that just threw my schedule a little bit in a way that I wasn't going to be able to record with good audio quality, at least. And so Zack took on what I will say is the daunting task of building his perfect college football world. And that was what was going to kick off this, basically no matter what, is kind of interviewing him about that, little kind of like meta podcasting. Unfortunately, fortunately in terms of content, but unfortunately in terms of utter stupidity, the NCAA gave us something else to talk about. So Zack, why don't you tell them the news that we have, incredible news that we have, and then we'll talk more about, honestly, the need for rethinking some of this stuff. Like the whole reason for last week's episode, the crux of you, honestly, again, like mapping out these big picture things that are messy and it's easy to think it won't work, blah, blah, blah. But then you see something like what happened this week and think, well, that's been happening for a little while. And so it begs the question.
So Arion Carter declared for the draft, which was well within his rights. And he had an injury pop up, and the NFL told him essentially that, hey, this might hurt your draft stock. So Arion decided to come back. Great job. Perfect. Nice to have another starter on linebackers. Having a guy like him in Knowles' defense, perfect. In between that time when he declared for the draft, he had an agent. My guess is it must have been an NFL agent, not a certified college agent, would be my guess. And the agent set him up a flight. It was $450 to get to Indianapolis for the combine. That's when he found out about the injury, and then he came back to Tennessee. Apparently, it is illegal for an agent to pay for a flight, no matter the cost. Arion paid it back, which I'm sure Arion gets at least six figures in NIL pretty easily, I would imagine. So $450 is probably no skin off his back. The NCAA, I guess Tennessee reported this just to keep everything good, would be my guess. The NCAA gives him a 3-game suspension. 3 games. Tennessee appeals it like, hey, Tennessee appeals it. And the NCAA comes back like, it's going to be 2. So Arion pays for his own flight eventually. Much like if, your friend's like, yeah, here's $450 in cash. You can pay me back next week when you get paid or something. Arion paid it back. No harm, no foul. And over $450, he's going to miss 2 games, including, as of right now, the Georgia Tech game in Atlanta, which is not a pushover football game for the Vols. That's a good program right now. And Darian Mensah's going to make $8 million this year.
That's the thing. I will say, like, him paying it back is almost certainly like an oh crap moment. And he's like, well, I'll just pay it back and maybe everything will turn out okay, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, this operated, I would imagine this operated almost precisely how the NFL would want it to operate. Like when you think about the league that is the goal, and especially for big middle linebacker that has improved but has some flaws, etc., physical dude, good enough to play in the NFL, but not, the number 1 pick as a quarterback. He did the process, I would say, precisely how we want these kids to do the process. And it's funny I even just said kids. These are professional athletes at this point.
Mm-hmm.
To the letter, he did this, I think, how you would want it to happen. And it's just like, this is the moment they need to like re-up on their high horse. And I think I've said this on a couple different episodes now, but it shows how silly some NCAA stuff has been. I think I said it with Bediako. I've never seen an entire sect of a sports fan base agree so hard on something. And it seems like both the last 2 times I've said that has been like disfavoring Tennessee. And that I think is just coincidence, but it's obnoxious.
It should also be mentioned this same organization couldn't suspend a player who gambled against his own team. I was going to say, on the record, by the way.
For the immediate, obviously long-term, bigger picture, there would have been problems. But for the immediate NCAA decision, he would have been better off placing $427 or 427,000's worth of dollars of bets on games happening all across the country. And of course, that would have had bigger picture ramifications. It would have been really interesting to see if it wasn't a star transfer quarterback, what would have happened. But I just don't think you can do this to these like the NCAA in a way and the NFL are. This is what they want people to do. And he made probably a tough, like a difficult, but I think like brave decision to be like, I just don't think it's happening for me this year. Maybe I can improve my stock and it can't get worse. And so I might as well go back and try to win some games. And then it's like, okay, congrats on all of that. You're going to miss 2 games of this season where you're trying to put better stuff on tape.
It should also be noted, so Tennessee appeals it. If the NCAA had just been like, okay, he's going to be suspended for the first game, this still would have been dumb, but I think we all would have been like, well, actually, he probably doesn't need to play against Furman.
Well, and it's what everybody does with these, where it's like,
Right.
It's handled in-house. He's suspended for, a breakfast.
Fine, we'll take the 1-game suspension and move on. To be like, thanks for the appeal and approve the appeal, and then be like, but he's getting 2. Not that I'm thinking it's specifically against Tennessee. I think it's more just the NCAA going, hey, we can take like, yeah, you're killing us and stabbing us in the heart, but I got to poke you and I scratched your arm. It almost feels like that's what they're trying to do here. And it's unbelievable that I can literally watch on Twitter a battle for Darian Mensah with money and watch Ole Miss sue LSU players for $1 million in contracts to get their money back. And the NCAA has time to be like, God, Arion, you really
Did
messed
someone
up with this
take a flight?
It's unbelievable. Yeah. And I guess
Yeah.
my question is, if he did it with a college agent, like a college certified agent, is he suspended? I don't think he is. It's because it was an NFL only agent or something. It's so dumb. The whole thing.
What's funny? I don't even know I don't even know the answer.
And there's no harm. Arion could clearly afford the flight. Like he probably made 6 figures last year. Now
it was just probably part of the process that it's paid for in some other way.
I'm saying the agent's saving his client 15 minutes of time. So
yeah, let me do that for you. Let me set these things up for you.
Exactly. It's unbelievable.
That combined with and again, parts of this we're okay with, parts of this we want people to be compensated for their skills. But what you kicked the podcast off with last week was a star high school running back committing. And essentially all of the conversation around that centered on I wonder what the package was. I wonder what they're paying him. I wonder what OSU wasn't willing to do, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, under a week later, $427 is the crux of a 2-game suspension.
And the other thing I don't understand, I can sort of see. So you remember AJ Green got suspended 16, 17 years ago, I guess, for selling his own stuff. I understand, even though I disagree with that at the time, and I still do now, why the NCAA would do that. Because then you start getting this stuff like, is it the schools? The school buys it for him. And I understand that. But Arion was going to the NFL, and it's not like it's related to Tennessee or anything like that. It doesn't give Tennessee any sort of recruiting advantage either. It's not like they flew a recruit in, for example, and then, paid the flight or, whatever, or paid for flights for extra family members on a visit or something like that. It doesn't benefit Tennessee in any way, shape, or form. That's the other thing I don't get about this.
It's one that so the reason a player would be suspended, I guess, if there's some question, if they did something that threatens their, this is going to sound so silly, but if they did something to threaten their status as an eligible athlete, and that would be something like receiving impermissible benefits in the recruiting process, like you said. Like, there are questions around this person, whether this person should be eligible. He violated some sort of amateurism that they are still selectively enforcing, but he's being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to play football.
It
Like,
just should be a common sense thing. If this was like a $10,000 flight with like an all expense paid vacation to Australia, okay, I see your point. But
or
it's one flight to Indianapolis that costs $450.
he just so happened to the agent paid for 19 different flights. Like there are versions of this where it's like, oh, you're using the convenience of a rule to like get away with a million different things. This was absolutely within the bounds of that process. And then it's just like coming back to bite him. And again, like Furman, that game doesn't matter. Georgia Tech, that game does matter. And I've heard the logic of like, if we needed Arion Carter for that game, we're in trouble. I'm not even worried about that. It's not like how well we play in that game retroactively determines whether the suspension was justified. We got to have a process here. We got to have rules in place. And then, like you said, I think the funniest part of this is, oh, yeah, that's going to be 3 games. And then the appeal, which would be, again, centering around this amateurism question, they back off, but not completely. It's like,
Right.
oh, he was kind of in violation of these amateurism rules, so 2 fits the crime here.
Or North Carolina is literally being investigated for their NIL deals, and not one player has been announced as suspended right now. And I guarantee you that investigation is going to lead nowhere.
And I do wonder, I would like to know, I don't know if there's any way ever to, but I would like to know how many players essentially did the exact same thing that Arion did, but they didn't return to school. And so, like, this was just the process for hundreds and hundreds of athletes, but he happened to return to school. And so they just like play gotcha on the back end.
Yeah, and this is why the college football world is broken. And this is
Yeah.
stuff
So
that turns me off on the whole thing.
this is why the task of like laying out what a perfect college football world would look like and what you took on in the pod last week, there are parts of it, and this is like involuntary response as I'm listening. There are parts of it where I'm like, well, gosh, that's not going to happen. Like that would be, people are going to be so stubborn on that. And we could get into like the nitty gritty details. But then I think about the Arion Carter thing and I'm like, well, this is why we keep brainstorming on this, because there is just layers of silliness to some of this stuff, to the point where I don't think we're ever going to twist it back into like the game we remember from a certain age or whatever. And there's so much nostalgia tied into that it's really hard to differentiate why we feel weird about it now. But I do think things like this are why we've just been like throwing our hands up and just a little bit disenchanted with the process sometimes. And that genuinely is not just because like Tennessee's good some years and bad some years. I don't care as much about that. The feel of the sport has changed, and that's why you're trying to craft a modern version of it. Like, you weren't saying, let's go back to 1991 and exactly how it worked. You were saying, how can I backfit some of the good things within this chaotic system that we have now? And I think we had talked about that project for a long time, and you gave an awesome baseline for us to be like, what works and what doesn't as things develop in the sport itself. And so I had some follow-up questions, and then we'll kind of see what else we get into. But I had a couple specific follow-ups that I wrote down as I was listening. The first one, and this is big picture, and so we can go through a couple parts if we need to, but you did this, and I mean, I saw the behind-the-scenes document. Like, I saw how the sausage was made on this.
Yeah.
And it's like, it really does take, oh, well, that affects this, and well, that affects this, and so now I got to think about this. After all that you did in terms of mapping it out, what part are you the least satisfied with still? Like, what part are you like, listen, I said this on the pod, but I don't know if I believed it. I was saying it. I just had to have an answer for that part of the structure.
It was the transfer portal. I don't know what the answer is. Part of this, and not to get into moral debates, but part of this is I just don't believe you should be restricted in where you go to school as a normal student. So it's really hard for me to come up with like a sense of rules where I think the old way is totally wrong, where it's like, unless you graduate, you have to sit out of here no matter what, or you have to file a appeals process to try and, whatever the situation would be to get eligible immediately. I just couldn't, nothing I came up with was like ultimately satisfying. There is so many things that when you try to come up with a good rule for the transfer portal, everything's got a problem. It's like just plugging holes on a ship. Like, oh, I plugged that one, and now there's a new one, and it's like one of those cartoons where all of a sudden they get 10 arms, and
Yes.
that's how it feels. And when when I asked on Ball Nations, in the famous notorious BEN, said I didn't like your transfer portal. I told him, I'm like, I don't like it either. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have a good fix for it. I think the NIL stuff and like pulling the media rights can be fixable if they unionized or whatever. And I know that brings its own set of problems, but at least I can get behind that. I don't know the transfer portal. I almost like, if I wasn't morally against it, I almost feel like maybe the whole way would be better. It's so tough.
When I was listening to that part, and this is me listening without a better idea, like, it's not like I asked that to set you up for here's my idea on it.
No, I got
there's no version of that here, but I do think, like, as I was chewing on it, here's what screws it up, or pause. What used to mess it up when it was like there was restrictions around it and you had to sit out a year? What used to make that unfair? Coaches leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And this was an era of recruiting where it was like coaches are making these big promises and they're rebuilding and they're doing this and they're doing that, and you're going to start or you're going to play early, and then they're out the door in the middle of the night. Well, lo and behold, we're here now, and whatever rule we put on this thing is still screwed up by coaches leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And people can say all they want, like commit to a program and commit to a blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, like coaches leaving is tied to promises made, scheme, future as an athlete, NIL, whether they're going to recruit you when they go to the next spot. Like, it just completely wrecks everything. And we had this long stretch where coaches were like demanding utter loyalty and staying at the same spot no matter what from these college athletes, while they were doing whatever they wanted.
And it's not like the coaches had to sit out for a year.
No, the coaches could they could just name their next spot and try to go win. Meanwhile, the kids like just stuck between a rock and a hard place when that happens. And so when you first started describing it and you have like kind of the maximums you were putting on it and the kind of one free transfer kind of thing, I actually liked those things. But every single time I locked in liking them, I was like, well, what if a coach leaves? Because I just think about like Westamaker at North Texas and now Oklahoma State. Like, his whole deal right now is trying to rise with that coach. Mm-hmm. And we can pretend like it's not. We can pretend like he should have, he could go here and he could go there. It's like, right, but the coach didn't have to do that. The coach got to go wherever. And so and there's absolutely no fix for these coaches not chasing a buck or chasing everything else. And so, admittedly, I don't have here's my better idea yet, because I can't solve not even following a coach, just I can't solve the coaches leaving in the middle of the night thing. It breaks the process.
I think of Tyler Bray, and he commits to Tennessee and is early enrolled in Tennessee, and he probably could have got out of his scholarship. I think after Kiffin left, he didn't, which I'm glad he didn't. That guy, I don't want to say duly ruined any chance he had of being a successful NFL quarterback. Maybe he just didn't have it. I mean, he played in the NFL for a while, but like, that guy could have been a first round pick in the right situation. And some of it's personal, like he didn't grow up, but he also was in a situation that didn't give him the opportunity to grow up, right? If he's coached by David Cutcliffe, if Tennessee hired Cutcliffe in 2010, I'm feeling like Tyler Bray's like going to be a first round pick, okay? Like, that's how I think it would have played out. So I think of those situations, or just, you remember Chris Donald, the former
Hmm.
Tennessee linebacker, who's 5-star kid. He just wasn't an SEC player. And he sits there for 3 years, and he probably could have been a decent player, maybe middle Tennessee State, or, maybe goes to the MAC, whatever. And it's just like, this poor kid's staying here for 3 years, doesn't get to play. And so it's those situations where I want kids to have the freedom option, but I also don't want four teams in 4 years. Like, it's more prevalent in basketball. We've noticed that.
Yeah.
And I also just Josh Richardson just retired from basketball. I loved watching him, even on some not good teams, become such a good player, literally year by year. And now Tennessee's basketball team, literally the top 8 guys outside of Dwayne Brown, are going to be all transfers.
And we're super
And I
excited
don't
about
blame
him.
them.
But
And we are. I'm super excited about this team. I think they can make a Final Four. Or like Michigan's starting 5 was all transfers. So I don't know what the answer is. Like, unless you just punish coaches who
but
leave,
that's never going to
but
happen, though.
it's never
You
going to
know,
happen. It's not. Yeah, it's not going to happen. There isn't anything you can do. Like, I don't even know what would be the punishment to make that work. So I think it's just one of those things where, and also the Supreme Court just 9-0'd it too as part of it.
yeah.
It's backed by the Supreme Court. They can transfer and make money off their name, image, like this. So there's not going to be a perfect answer, but I do wish there was something else. Now, I think getting rid of the spring portal is a good start.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think that helps. Or maybe the other idea I didn't mention. There's a limit of immediate transfers that can play on your team. You can have 7 immediate transfers play on your football team the next year. 10 if you're a new coach, and that's it.
Some
Maybe
kind
that
of
would.
way to push back on the roster a little bit. It was kind of like your transfer fee idea, which again, the
Mhm.
number figure is impossible to implement. But the idea of listen, I don't mind if you're building and giving kids an opportunity, and congrats to you, but 42 guys that were 5th years on another roster back fit to your roster, and you just throw out the high school recruiting. I don't know. I think if I think back to the stuff I miss about this era of college football that I really like, whereas now I like it. That was when I really liked / loved it. The thing I probably miss the most is this guy is going to be better next year. This guy struggled, but he's going to improve. And now everything is aimed towards a version of optimization that is admirable because I get it, but it's not reflective of how I enjoyed football. It was almost like I like my flawed team, and I want to see if they can start to make some plays. I like that. I like watching Lucas Taylor become an improved wide receiver. I like watching, Montario Hardesty go from athlete to ripping off a spin move. I like that stuff. And we never would have seen those guys play in this era, at least not for Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I don't like is trading Jordan Ross for Chaz Coleman because you decide to pay Coleman and you have to make other money
Yeah.
decisions there. I get enough of that in my pro sports, right?
Right.
I'm so sick and tired of Jalen Duren updates every day on if he's going to sign or not this restricted free agency deal. Okay, I don't need it in my college sports as well.
I have a thought on that towards the end with the segment we're going to do at the end of the
Mhm.
podcast. I have a follow up on this. The other question I was going to say, I found myself balking at whether anyone would be willing to do this rearrangement of teams where you have 10 in each conference, et cetera. I could just
It would
picture
never happen, by the
No, it
way.
would never happen. I will say I would sign up for LSU complaining because it would be hilarious, even though they'd be in a great position. But I like
Mhm.
the idea of there's 10 in a conference, you're playing all of them, go see who's better. Because so many so many of these teams / coaches / fan bases, and us included sometimes, like they kind of want it to be, let me show you who's better, until it's just okay, go play the other 9. And if you're better than them, you'll be good to go. If you're not, there's no back end route here. You're either better than them or you weren't. And so I actually really like that. The final question I have, and I think we'll come back to this throughout the season because you set it up so well. Do you think this would change at all the like feeling of like programs that are haves versus have-nots in college football? Or do you think like kind of no matter the structure, there's going to be some cream of the crop,
I think no matter the structure, there will always be cream of the crop. Like, I can't imagine Ohio State
just like
being,
falling off because we tinkered with it?
yeah, I don't think it's going to negatively impact them, or I don't think Alabama won't recover. Like, I think the one issue I might have is you might not have the Indiana situation
Oh yeah.
where, even though this is going to be NIL, because I set a cap, you can't have Mark Cuban. And like, nobody talks about like Mark Cuban literally just be like, oh, I'm bored because I sold the Mavericks, so I'm putting $50 million in the football program. Like, so that would be harder, even though I think there'd still be plenty of money to go around. I think, though, if you hired like a good coach, you're in a better spot where, Matt Campbell's like, I literally cannot do anything else at Iowa State. I have literally maxed this out to the best of my ability. Like, I think that would create more opportunities in those situations. I think this would create maybe a little bit of a kind of go back to how it was with like the bottom tier. Like, I like Mississippi State in this scenario would probably not be in a good spot, you
So
know?
I was going to say, you actually, the way you were describing it, and especially if there was any possibility for relegation that you kind of briefly touched on, it would make sure the bad teams were bad
Yeah, it would. Absolutely.
because they would never invest if it was like such an uphill battle or you're going to finish seventh every time. And so, and again, like those are kind of consistently bad teams anyway. So I don't think that's a negative about the plan. And I don't even think keeping the halves is a goal or not a goal. I just think it's probably just making the point that I think that's going to persist no matter what. And
Hmm.
then we solve what we can around it because it's always going to exist.
I think the big thing it would fix is like, and I feel this way. I think if we go to 24, it's going to kill the regular season. Like,
Yes.
it's in the one thing that separated college football was every game did matter. This gives you a little, my 18 playoff conference champion in order to get in. It lets you have a bump, but it would still put magnitude on every game. And I've hearkened this on the podcast. It's like that 24 Michigan upset against Ohio State, in retrospect, didn't matter. It
At
actually might
all.
have helped Ohio State
I
because
think
they
so.
didn't have to play in the Big Ten title game. It
Stressed up.
saved them a week of wear and tear. And I just think about like that situation. And then I was on social media and I watched a 10-minute highlight of the Kick Six game. And I'm thinking about it and I'm like, in today's football, Alabama would have been a top 4 seed
Mhm.
and would have won the national title.
It wouldn't have mattered at all.
And it would have been cool. Like, it would have been fun. But like, you're right, it wouldn't have mattered overall. Like, it'd be like a remember when you see every once in a while on social media instead of maybe being the biggest play in college football history, at
It
least regular.
takes away whatever stakes it introduces in these playoff games, because they're legitimate stakes there. But whatever stakes it introduces in these playoff games, if we're talking about overall stakes throughout a season, it's kind of a wash because
Hmm.
it completely erases stakes from so many other games. Especially like you said, if we go to 24, the stakes have been wrecked at that point. I think it's something we'll keep chewing on. The remainder of this episode, I want to talk about the Knowles defensive scheme. And this is purely like refresher and introduction for the listeners. We've talked a ton about the defense. We've talked a ton about Knowles. We've talked about the staff. And we're going to do a roster preview as well in a future episode coming up soon. But this is purely about the scheme and kind of getting us used to it. It is very different from what we've been seeing on the field. Doesn't make it perfect, doesn't make it a disaster. The way I'm thinking of this episode is giving you some hangers in the closet to put ideas for future episodes. If the listeners will go with me on this analogy for a second. right now, all of the hangers we have for thinking about the defense are like negative feelings from last year, the scheme we're used to over the past couple of years, the players we're used to over the past couple of years. This episode, this discussion of Knowles' scheme is we're taking those hangers and throwing them out and giving you new hangers in your closet that are like, why does this scheme matter? What's different about it? What positions are important? What positions are we concerned about? And then when we talk about the roster, when we talk about the schedule, when we talk about our concerns, when we talk about the positives, you can now just put stuff on that hanger neatly and organize thoughts about the defense in your closet a little more effectively. Because I think it's a worthwhile discussion to just go from kind of the base on what the defense is like. This beginning part can be kind of quick, but a refresher on why there was a defensive coordinator change, I think, is worthwhile because I think it all in our brains goes back to the Vandy game. And of course, that was the nail in the coffin. There were some concerns before that. And admittedly, I was a slow mover on the concerns, but it did not just boil down to the Vandy game. There's a reason that it was like, okay, regardless of that game, there might be a reason to make a change here anyway. Can you talk about the kind of different motivations for that?
Yeah, I think the big thing was just the defense had become way too passive this past year. And even times at 24, I think of the Georgia game where they just did not seem to really want to engage in big time games, even with a overall really good defense in 23 and 24. I think I don't, it's really tough because Heupel would never tell us if that was just something he wanted or if he just was so focused on letting Banks do the work that he just let him handle the defense and I'm too focused on offense and I'll trust him to do whatever it is necessary. It just felt way too passive. I thought the tackling had really declined. And I think if you're a bad tackling team, you're not listening to coaches that you've tuned out some of them. And it got pretty stale. Like if you think about it, Gardner and Martinez had been there since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Banks had been there since the beginning. And we've kind of come to the point now, I think, with college football where it's like NFL. It's like you got to make a few changes here and there every couple of years. And it just was time for some fresh blood. I'll just say this. I think teams have figured out Banks' stuff, especially on third down. Like, I think they figured him out. And now, is that going to – I mean, Knowles has been around a while too. But
yeah.
And again, the talent pool was never top half on defense, other than maybe 24, with McCoy and Pierce specifically. But way too passive, not enough scheme changes that were made over the course of the last couple of years. I think that's why it had to happen.
Yeah, it felt passive for sure, but it also felt like very predictable, like you said. It just felt like it was like we were just laying the same cards out and hoping that the other hand wasn't good enough. It wasn't like we were shuffling in new cards. It was, this is what we've got, and there's going to be situations where it turns out okay, but we weren't in charge a lot of times. And again, the Vandy game was like the point on that in a really ugly way. But I love the idea of like, no, here's our scheme. That combined with the Nealand effect, we're going to roll this out there and crush. It's just so rare that actually works. Like, I think there actually is a version of Saban's Alabama teams where that is what they did for like, I don't know, a decade. And that simplifies it a little too much, but I think there actually is some truth to that. But like Kirby right now, and they've had their own struggles with certain parts of their defense, but Kirby right now is like, he's successful because it's so varied. He's willing to change. He's willing to adapt mid-game. And I just, there was not a willingness to do that. And I think the other nuanced part of why we had to move on, you said like, maybe this is a good time for fresh blood. The talent was never top half. Maybe this big name and big names on the staff, it's not just that their scheme is like perfect and never seen before. It is also that pushes the roster, hopefully, to a place where you find the dudes instead of not. And so if the talent rises a little bit and the scheme's a little bit better, those two things working in tandem might get you to that elite status. That's the hope. But I thought it was worth a review of like kind of why we just felt the need to move on because we felt the need to move on and made a great hire, but we wanted to move on no matter what. We just happened
I,
to
it
make a
wasn't
good
until the
hire.
Vandy game for me that I thought it had to be done.
Yep.
And the second half defense last year,
Oh my
like you
god.
think about you think about specifically the Georgia and the Vanderbilt game
Yep.
where they got, and even Arkansas,
Arkansas was
they
what
got
came to my mind.
railroaded in the second half, even though they beat Arkansas. Like all three of those games, and even Oklahoma a little bit, they just got railroaded. Like it looked like they did not do anything different. And I think in-game adjustments are a little overrated.
Yeah.
I don't I don't think people realize how hectic a halftime the football halftime locker room is. And I think yes, you're getting some information and stuff, but I'm still scarred from Vanderbilt. Like, I just cannot, like, it looked like Vanderbilt knew the plays that we were running defensively. And then I also think about, South Carolina in 22, and I understand what the lore has become on that game. But uh, it there were times where you could just predict what we were doing defensively. And if I can tell and you can tell, then we obviously know offensive coordinators could tell. And especially in the second half of games last year.
So what does Knowles bring that's systematically different? I mean, we're talking about a system change here. We're talking about a need to throw out the old system. We know about his like attitude and his gruffness, whatever. What does he bring from a system perspective that you're excited about?
So he's going to bring in much more aggressive DB play. And that has been a staple of Jim Knowles for over a decade, ever since he joined Cutcliffe at Duke. You're going to get much more DB play. You can beat them over the top, and he doesn't care because he would rather have playmakers on the back end. That's something Tennessee, outside of Jamad McCoy and like Kamal Hadden for a 5-game stretch, have not done at
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, have true playmakers. We like how many times we talk about our safeties did nothing last year, right? They just like Farouk, God bless him, he could make a play here and there, but you had 5 mistakes to make the one play. And then I'm not bringing up the turn time because I will have flashbacks, but much more aggressive defensive back play. I think you're going to have better gap integrity with your defensive linemen. Tennessee's defensive linemen were allowed to, especially if they had a good edge, like Pierce, allowed the free flow a little bit. He's not going to let that happen. Like you're going to have gap integrity. And then I think he's going to let his linebackers be more playmakers than cleanup guys. So some of those are things. They're going to run a 4-2-5 like Tennessee has done in the past. The one thing you're going to see, though, is the 3 safety look that he implements is so interesting because unlike Tennessee that had 2 corners, a nickel, and 2 safeties, those 3 safeties will rotate in spots. One safety can play nickel one play. One safety can play nickel the other play. One safety can go be the deep guy. One guy can play the robber, which is another thing they're going to do, a lot more robber coverage so safeties can be aggressive. So those are the big things you're going to see from Jim Knowles that we haven't seen at Tennessee. And then the other thing I would say, it's hard to describe just over audio. He loves to trap. And what I mean by that is the corner is either going to force a guy to go the wide receiver one way, and he wants him to go into that zone specifically. So a linebacker or safety can be aggressive on that. He's going to trap a lot more than where Tennessee's just playing soft zone or man coverage. So those are the big things you're going to see that's different. And the DB play really is the big thing I would say though.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about these changes, and it's a bummer with how we watch football every week, but so much of the changes are actually not going to be visible right away because of how we watch on broadcast. Like what the back end is doing is going to be so important for this defense, and it's going to look so different. And there's going to be times where, and this is myself included, like we're going to be like, what is that guy doing? Like who? Because one, we're not used to people moving around much,
Mm-hmm.
and two, we're not used to 3 safeties out there. Like I mean, our safeties were so anonymous in the past scheme. Like, yeah, we've ragged on them and they didn't play well. Not only that, they were just anonymous. Like you've said it before, Heupel just says like stand back there and make sure nothing bad happens.
Can I interject something real quick?
Yeah.
Jalen McCall is a great example of this, where he was so unremarkable at Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then he gets to the Rams, and he's like a playmaking safety.
Like, go downhill and play on the ball, and like, yeah.
Yes, and that's just something I think about. Like, I was like, when McCullough, I think he got drafted in 7th round. I'm like, he's not going to have a career. And now he's one of the better safeties in the league,
It's
and he's a
legit.
playmaker too. And that's something I never understood with Tennessee in general, with their defense, is their safeties were almost like taking a guy who can drive in the paint, just stand him in the corner, like for threes. It
When you
just
think
never
about,
made sense.
like, modern defenses and how defenses are trying to, like, I guess, like, hold the cards that the offense then has to figure them out, and how important good safety play is to modern defenses. And then you think about our defense, I mean, truly just saying, we're not worried about that position. Like, that position is not, we don't want it to negatively impact, and it's not going to positively impact what happens for our defense. That's kind of bad. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Mhm.
And again, this is all like convenient 2020 hindsight, but I think it's true where if I have a concern about Knowles' scheme year one, is that his scheme, I think, enhances DB play. It leads to really good defensive backs because they have to be to play in his scheme. And so it feels like something he brings where our defensive backs are going to look completely different in terms of structure, in terms of attacking, in terms of mindset, in terms of how much they move around. But it also seems like an absolute requirement for this defense to be good. Like, we
Yes.
need defensive backs who are going to be dynamic and able to play multiple positions and able to impact the game. And if we don't have that, it's going to be really hard to force things the way we want to force things. And so,
And instinctive. Like,
yes,
that's
like,
the other thing. Like, these guys are going to have moments where they're going to have to decide to make a play, or at least attempt to. You can't just sit back like we've done in the past and just let the play come to you. Like, these guys are going to be in spots where Tennessee's safety specifically are designed on defense to make a play on the ball.
like, you have three safeties and y'all are rotating to confuse the offense. But then, like, one of you is going from, like, rotated to the field to playing what essentially becomes a Tampa 2 middle linebacker on a
Mm-hmm.
certain play, and it's like, you gotta be ready to do that because you are what stands between that person who was in motion getting up the seam or not. And if you effectively stand in between it, then there's your interception, there's your pass breakup, there's your third down stop. If not, there's your 50-yard play. And so I don't know. I don't even necessarily have massive concerns about like these horrible miscommunications and guys running wide open, as much as I have concerns about just not having the absolute dudes to make it reach its potential. And it would be a hell of an expectation in year one. I'm just thinking back to like the Knowles film study that I have done. I really enjoy seeing it. I really enjoy seeing these dynamic looks from the secondary because it looks completely foreign to me. But every single time something good happens, I hear Caleb Downs' name.
Yes.
And that we don't have, or at least we don't know that we have anybody who's willing to make a play like that. So not even to get into the roster, it's just Caleb Downs would make a lot of playmaking secondary looks look good. And
His
so,
corners play up too.
yes, play up and play with outside leverage a lot of times. They're forcing
Mm-hmm.
things to the middle of the field
Yes.
because they're counting on the safeties to make plays.
So that's the other thing is with dudes wise at Ohio State, it's not a problem. You've got
You
5-star
got some
DBs everywhere.
dudes.
Absolutely. With Tennessee, roster wise, I'm not going to get into specific players. Are they going to have enough guys to challenge at the line of scrimmage and press? He's going to press too. He's going to play man coverage. Now, one thing I will say is he loves to force quarterbacks into tight windows. So where I think something we've seen in the past is Tennessee allowed a lot of easy completions. And I think that was really frustrating. He's never done that, at least this decade. He's going to force you into tight windows. He's going to try and force you into tight coverage. Like, he's going to make the quarterback earn it. If you get 300 yards on his defense, he's going to do it. But part of that is you got to have guys that can press, and you have to have guys that can force the leverage where it needs to be.
Very leverage based. And that's why, and every defense is. I'm like, the two things that have stood out to me are very leverage based and very much taking away where the offense is dedicating bodies. Doesn't necessarily mean taking away like what the point of the play is supposed to be. It's just if the offense is dedicating bodies somewhere, he is willing to dedicate that extra safety to say, hey, congratulations, you're not doing it over here. If you can do it somewhere else, because you have a one-on-one on the far corner, or you realize that you can beat the safety in the middle of the field, more power to you. We'll get you next time. But you're not going to do it right over here where you've dedicated that extra blocker or you've set someone in motion. Like, we're going to go with you. And our leverage is going to dictate that you are not being successful in the exact way you want to be. There's still ways to be, but not that exact way in this play design. And frankly, he did it to us in the playoff really, really, really successfully. The I'll say this. I don't know how this year's going to go, and that's big picture team wise. If we do see some of that playmaking from the safeties in year one, it's going to be a really good job by him and the staff, because right now it's completely foreign. And I know not to them. They're probably excited to make plays, but it would be, when we're comparing to last year and even the year before, the summary of both years is like absolutely awful, bad tackling. And then what we were saying this time last year is we need turnovers, we need playmakers, we need more from the back end. I think if he's able to get more from the back end where we are affecting teams negatively, it's just a tip of the cap, and we hope the dudes come along to really let it be elite sometime.
So Mike Keith did a fantastic interview with Jim Knowles when Knowles got hired. It really a thankless job by Keith, and he asked some really good questions. And one of those was he brought up with Knowles that there's a year one adjustment with him, and Knowles head up said, yeah, my defense is not overtly complex, but it does take time to get used to it and bring in dudes. And something Knowles said was he brought a lot of analyst staff to Tennessee and brought in a lot of his own players, Chaz Coleman notwithstanding, to help stay ahead and advance quickly. And I think the key is this. The one other thing too that I want to mention, I don't think Tennessee's a top 20 defense this year. If he is, Jim Knowles is going to win the Boyles Award. Okay,
yes.
So I want to reiterate that what this hire was a long-term commitment.
Yeah,
because they need a guy that has always been good, and he always has been, and a guy who can get him to elite status. That 2021 Oklahoma State defense is arguably the best job by an assistant coach on that side of the ball in college football this decade. What he did at Ohio State, they got their ass kicked in 22 by Michigan, but he did a pretty good job against Georgia in that semifinal game. 23 and 24 was not the defense's fault. It was their offense's fault. And then we saw what he did in 24 defensively to Tennessee, what he did in a rematch with Oregon, what he did to Texas and Quinn Ewers, and what he did, in the national championship against Notre Dame. They got a little soft late, but I think they were up by like 24. They only allowed 7 points through 3 quarters. So when you take all of that and you look at like what his resume has been, even if it's not great in year one, this was a 3 to 5 year hire. This was not a quick fix. And I'm okay with having some mistakes or giving up some long passes, or a safety tries to make a tackle for loss and ends up being 12. I will be frustrated when it happens, but I also know that they're trying to install a new culture of, hey, play it safe, don't get beat deep, the offense is going to bail us out, to you are now going to be a key component to winning this game. You're not a secondary player. That's how the defense has been treated at Tennessee since Heupel got here. And it's led to great results. Like Heupel's, we're top 15 in wins since Heupel got here. So I'm not even criticizing the approach, but now we have stabilized everything. The scholarship reductions are done. Let's go ahead and get real on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and I I I think that's a great way to put it. I also think that it doesn't have to be top 10 or top 20. It's it just has to be a lot better than last year, and there's a ton of routes to that. Um, and gosh, I mean, being not middle of the pack, hopefully above middle of the pack in the country, but being not top 20, but somewhere a little bit behind that, but in ways where we actually see movement and playmaking and things like that. We have a schedule that is difficult to say the least. And so there's going to be some pain, but it it's going to be better than last year, I think. And I think that if that's the worst year and we had to speed it up to get to that, then I think that there's there's a lot to be excited about. And that's before we even talked about the players. And I know we're both like biting our tongues and we're itching to talk about the players, and we'll do that on an episode soon. Do you have any final concerns about the scheme? I mean, we're singing all these praises, and I think that's a good thing. And people seem to like the scheme, and he's had all sorts of great success with it at multiple stops, not just the spots where he had the dudes. But do you have any concerns where you're like, is it tempo? Is it a good offensive coordinator can find the holes in the scheme? I'm just curious if you have any specific things where you're kind of not wanting to look at the screen early on.
I have two things. One, Knowles is not a blitzer. He's average to below average in blitz rate in his time this decade. At Ohio State, you always had dudes, right, that could get after the quarterback with just 4. I am concerned that this aggressive DB play without getting to the quarterback in 2 seconds can cause some problems. Like, that
Yeah.
would be my thing. I'm hoping he's going to be a little bit more willing this year, or maybe try and fool the cornerback, because he loves to mix coverages. Like, he'll play
Yes.
man on one side, zone on the other. I'm hoping he maybe does more of that in year one as they try and find pass rushers. And I would say that maybe it's one of those in year one where he blitzes more and then he doesn't. Like, it seems like he will adjust, but he's not known as a blitzer. The second thing, just an overall concern about Jim Knowles. You better have some damn good defensive backs.
Yes, dude.
You better have some damn good coaches, which is why no offense to Martinez, he couldn't be here with bringing in Knowles. That's why they brought in Poindexter. That's why they brought in Derek Jones, who have experience with Knowles, and they're also known, Poindexter especially, known as some of the best defensive backs in the country, that defensive back coach in the country. So my concern is that Tennessee does not bring in enough dudes in the next couple of years where you're playing aggressive back to front instead of front to back isn't going to mesh, whatever you want to say. So that's my concern overall in Knowles. I think play calling wise, he's known as one of the best in-game adjusters on the defense side of the ball in the country. That's kind of been a calling card of his in the past. Some people have been like, oh, well, what happened at Penn State? Okay. I know he gave up a lot of points to UCLA, but like, go watch what he did against Indiana, man. Yeah. Like, Mendoza, till that final drive, was not having a good day. So I think there's a lot of positives with the play calling, the in-game adjustments. He's flexible. Could Tennessee get dudes in the next couple of years? Because I think that's going to be very important. This defense is not going to work with the defensive back talent we saw last year.
No, it just simply would not. And I don't know, it's kind of nice to be thinking about, like, we love Heupel, we love analyzing his scheme, we love seeing what he throws out that's new, and how like purposeful he is with his scheme. Especially last year, we saw changes. It's nice to also be thinking about what the other guy, the defensive coordinator, might do in terms of play calling. Like, we've never had a conversation around Tim Banks' play calling. Like, never once were we like, oh, I'm very excited to see what he might do with this or that. It was kind of just neutral, and at least we're not getting that. If it was some like hot shot up and comer that hadn't really shown anything, but they were a hot name, and they were like play calling like crazy, I might be like, okay, this could be really bad against like tempo against certain teams. little more faith in Knowles that he knows how to keep it between the buoys a little bit with the stuff that we'll see this year.
I think bringing in Knowles has been known to have very big defenses. Ohio State was freaking
Massive.
NFL size his 3 years there. And I know that's Ohio State, but bringing in Derek Owens, I think with Knowles was not an accident. I think that was purposefully executed. So that way Knowles will have enough size in the front four so where his defensive backs can have free reign to cause havoc.
Yeah,
My thing is I want to see the havoc rate go up. Knowles talked about stop rate. I understand that completely. I want to see the havoc rate go up. If we're like 71st in yards, but our havoc rate is like 14th, I would be ecstatic.
Yeah, let's roll the dice a little bit more. And I don't mean like take risks. I just mean like let's have it be a little more dynamic and variable instead of neutral and hope it's not bad. That's what we've been doing for the last few years.
Let's turn that jet sweep into a negative 3 yard run
instead of a guaranteed 7-yard run. And
yes, like, exactly.
Yeah, we just had there were so many ways to attack us that was like, you're definitely going to get 6 here. You might get 16. If we don't feel like tackling, you're going to get 26. Less of that is going to be heartening, I think.
And Knowles did specifically bring up tackling multiple times in that Mike Keith interview.
I can't imagine.
Like maybe that was.
Yes, I can't imagine him watching some of the film from last year.
That probably felt had to have something that was in his crawl. Well, just watching the film.
Some like very fancy trash can in the facility probably got thrown up in a few times that day.
Bukar's on the team, so good news for you, Jim. So you don't have to worry about those tackling.
What are we going to do at punt returner? Oh my gosh. Oh. For the Around the NCAA little stretch today, it's going to be short and sweet, but I have some amazing updates from my College Football 27 dynasty. So my son and I have started a College Football 27 dynasty with Tennessee. This game is, I mean, people can have their critiques and whatever. This is not a game review, but this is like, I mean, you can run RPOs, you can run whatever run scheme you want. The offensive line is going to do what you want for the most part. It matters whether you throw the ball correct. Like, it is not the NCAA that we grew up on, where it was like, if my impact player is flashing in the backfield, run a toss play and see how many tackles you can break. Like, it's just slightly different from that in ways that I like and don't like. The other thing that is really revamped in a different way is they now include NIL and portal in the recruiting process. And so you are like legitimately planning how to use your budget as a program.
Your son is also 5 years old.
Yeah, he's 6, but he is like, I mean, this isn't even meant as like a brag. He's a very smart kid. And he is like making NIL decisions and like like on the fly being cutthroat with like, he's very good at math and he knows the number that we can allocate. And he's making like on the fly cutthroat decisions about whether this person deserves the NIL that they're asking for. And it's such good theater. It's so funny. And so the thing I was going to say earlier about like fixing college football and blah, 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 some of it has like come to the fore in our playing of College Football 27 in so many funny ways. When I think about coaches and ADs and stuff like that, he is very cutthroat in his NIL decisions. Like, if he doesn't know the guy and they're asking for NIL, he's like, put it to 0 and I don't care if they transfer. And I'm like, well, like, we did recruit that guy and the idea is that he would then be good in a couple of years. And he's like, I don't care. I need results. But if it's a player that he really likes, he's like, give them whatever they want. Like, after I think year 1, maybe year 2, Staley wanted to go to the NFL. And he was like, I don't care what you have to do. Give him whatever he asked for. And I'm like, okay, we're kind of seeing why these decisions are tough sometimes. And it's kind of fun conversations. So the funny updates I have. The funny thing it made me realize about myself, and let me make it very clear, I am not Josh Heupel. I'm nowhere near. He knows, it's the old saying of like, he's forgotten more about football than I know, 100%, million percent. But the real life decisions that he's had to face of like, listen, you might be in my office complaining about your lot in life on this roster, but I can replace your production like tomorrow, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Is a real thing. And I don't mean that to be flip about like a player's career path and things like that, but there have been a couple moments in our own dynasty where it's like, you're the backup running back and you want a little more NIL this year, and like you're holding my feet to the fire with it. I got a year to replace your future production. I'm gonna be all right in my scheme.
Right.
And I'm sure he's had like, more sophisticated, similar thoughts. In our dynasty. So we've just done one. It's not that we have multiple going, and it's not online. It's just offline, old school. We're playing against the computer. That's the enemy. Lenora Sellers transferred after year one. And so I don't know why, but that was not on my radar at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go into the portal after year one, and it's just in the off season. And I'm like, McIntyre is what he is. Like, he's headed to be the quarterback the next year. Faison and Tristan Keys, et cetera, they're not on the game yet because they're not on the roster yet or whatever. I don't know the timing of it. And I was like, I'm not really that infatuated with McIntyre, but like, who's going to be in the portal? Like, who could we really want? Well, the top quarterback in the portal was Bryce Underwood.
That might really happen, actually.
He transferred to LSU. And then, but Levitt didn't leave. And so in year two of this dynasty, LSU had starting quarterback Sam Levitt, backup quarterback Bryce Underwood.
That did happen with Dante Moore.
Yes. And I was like, this is incredible. And I don't think that'll happen with Underwood. And then I was like, oh, this quarterback's interested in me. Maybe I do go out and get some. Underwood was not interested, but this number 2 quarterback in the portal was interested, and it was Lenora Sellers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's asking for like a massive NIL number. We decided not to go after him, but I was like, that was not on my big go card. Like, I was not even in a world where I could have that type of rudder in my offense. So that was one funny update. The second funny update, after 1 year, Brent Venables left to go coach in the NFL. And guess, it's on the outline, so you might have already seen it, but guess who took the Oklahoma job?
I'm going to guess Eli Drinkwitz.
Eli Drinkwitz.
God, Oklahoma.
I can't even picture that. I can't even get my brain around it. Like, in the game and how the game logic works, I can see why he was the one who took the job. But I would pay to see Oklahoma fans' reactions to that if it happened in real life.
Oh, my God. Yeah,
so that was
not
incredible. Okay. Clemson, after 1 year, fired Dabo. And in the off season and then into the regular season, they immediately, when they hired a new coach, they immediately became the number 1 budget in terms of NIL. They use more NIL than anybody, more than Michigan, more than Ohio State.
Okay.
After hiring James Franklin.
Interesting.
And I was like, I don't think that'll happen, but I am not going to rule out James Franklin eventually coaching at Clemson.
I couldn't see that happening. It would be, I feel like, to tie it into real college football, I feel like we might have to have a Dabo conversation in November. Yeah. And it's going to be such a good one between us.
Yeah. And like, again, thinking about the logic of the game is like, their roster's okay. The season didn't go great, and he just got fired. Like, there's no like, I'm a nice guy from the South in this game. It's a computer. Mm-hmm. And so you got fired. So Michigan, what's the name of their coach right now? I completely lost it.
Kyle Whittingham.
Which is just
so weird to say.
Yes, but this is why the king stays the king with these blue bloods, is like, what are we going to do? Oh, we'll just hire one of the best coaches in the country. He retired after 2 years.
Okay.
And if you can guess who the Michigan coach is in our current dynasty, I don't know what the bet is because it's not going to matter.
Lincoln Riley. I don't
know. Kirby Smart.
Kirby didn't do good in the NFL. That is that.
I don't know if it was he came back or he left Georgia.
He pulled up Bobby Petrino.
Yeah, I was going through the Bobby Petrino got fired after year 1, by the way, as a coordinator.
Mm.
Um, I was going through the changes in the offseason, and I was like, "What in the world is happening here with Michigan?" And then I looked more closely, and I was like, "Kirby Smart's the Michigan coach." And my wife was like, "Well, this game's not realistic because that would never happen." So I'll have more updates if fun stuff happens. It's not going to be. I'm not going to bore you all with it, but those were some absolutely hilarious things that just like happened in the background of our
I want
of
to
our
ask you a
dynasty.
question because
Yeah.
I saw this actually this week about the game from a couple of people saying that are around our age. Maybe it's not because you play with Grant, so it might be a little different. Is the game too real for you? Like,
Are you
has it
are you talking about like the
like the NIL and the transfer portal and all of that? Is it just too real? Like, is it too much? Like, this isn't quite as fun as I was hoping it would be. Or
here's
do
what I'll
you just
say.
get like really annoyed being like, I don't want to have to make NIL decisions while playing a college football game?
If I were doing and like you probably did this, and I know I did it. Like if I were doing I'm going to build Army from scratch and turn them into a national title contender, that plotting away of like legitimately this like 5 or 10 difference in NIL is like I might not be able to make my roster work, let
Mm-hmm.
alone win 7 games. The people who try to do that and then play on the hardest possible difficulty with every slider all the way up, I don't think I would enjoy that. I think I wouldn't want to do that, and then there's no way I could dedicate the time to that. And so, like, that version of it that was probably fun here and there when I was younger is, like, out of the question. That would be a slog. It would feel like a slog. And so I don't think I would enjoy that. But as far as the realism, here's what I'll say. There's obviously all kinds of conversation around this game, and, like, because I've played the game and because I've, searched a couple things about the controls, it's now in my algorithm. So I see people playing it on Instagram or whatever. And the people who like pinpoint complain about every little tactic and blocking scheme.
Yeah.
And I'm like, y'all are missing the point here. Like when we would get an NCAA game when we were younger, it's like, oh, this was the year where if you ran this particular play, you had success.
Stick and nod, baby.
Yes, like this was the year where you could have, if you were able to find a tight end who would catch the ball, you're going to have tons of success. That's just how it works. Like I think these people who are like, I called a counter play, and the left tackle pulled too slowly. How is this game? How is it possible? It's like this push for optimization of perfection in a football game is like kind of missing the point at a certain point. Like I don't care, even if you're playing on like you're just missing the point. Um, and so I like the fact that it's like, oh, this one little part of the game is kind of broken. It seems like
Mm-hmm.
that's they're probably going to fix it because they can patch stuff now. But more than anything, it's like, okay, this is the broken part.
I think for us, since we don't play online, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter because then I'm like, oh, I found a new a Nerf play. I just won't call it,
yeah,
just to give
exactly.
myself the challenge. So I think it's part of it. I will say the microtransaction stuff did suck, and
Was
I'm glad
brutal.
that some of the other people called them
Tons
out
of
on it.
pushback
But
on that, and they kind of succumb to that pushback, and so definitely on that, I'm on the side of the people. But yeah, occasionally Grant will find a play that just works every time. Like, especially if we're playing against a bad opponent. But it's like we'll play he likes playing App State because he's familiar with App State, and it's fun to play home and home with App State in Boone. And so
mhm,
we've done that. And against App State, like you can just run all over them a lot of times. But then later in the season, when we're playing like, at Texas A&M, who got 17 guys in the portal and they have the best defense of all time, he can get frustrated with like, well, why can't we run the ball? And it's like, well, you can't spam stuff like that.
mhm.
And so I actually like that it forces you to make decisions. You got to be ready to play though. Like if you're out there, like, okay, I'm just gonna fool around a little bit. You're gonna throw like 15 interceptions. It is. And I will say the way that the combination of like the way I guess recruiting works in terms of the programming and then the transfer portal, there are a couple rosters that they just get whoever they want. Like like I said, like Levitt, but still getting Underwood, like things like that. It's like there are a couple rosters where I think preseason of the season we were just about to start is like Michigan's entire offensive line is preseason All-American.
Right. Yeah.
It's
And
because
that's always been a problem,
they
though.
just found
Like,
the right combination. Yeah.
NCAA 14, I lead the country in rushing, and it was like, oh, hey, since you lead the country in rushing, you're for offensive lineman or first team All American. It's like, well, that's not as fun.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
did have a running back that was like in the Heisman race and wanted to transfer because he didn't like the playing style of the team. And so if Bishop wins Heisman this year, just be careful because he might transfer.
I think if Bishop wins Heisman this year, he's going pro.
Yes.
So, and
Yes.
I will gladly take that trade. Absolutely.
Yes.
Hey, I wanted to bring something up real quick. Last week without actual football.
Yes.
Next week, your Panthers play the Cardinals preseason game, so we're getting close.
Brazzle alert.
Yeah, unfortunately, he tore his LCL and he's out for the year. That sucks for him. And we didn't do Vols draft stuff, and that was bad on our part. But I was really excited for him. I thought that was a good spot. And that's
my
important.
son was so pumped for him to be like close geographically. Sucks.
I think he was gonna have a good year, and I understand why he's having the surgery. I think that's the right thing to do. But I am excited for football, man. It's getting near. It wasn't in the 90s this week where in my neck of the woods, so I'm like, we're getting closer, just inching towards our football.
Yep, and we've got position or sides of the ball previews coming, and we'll kind of get more specific about the kind of the order we're going to go in there. We'll wind up doing offense and defense, and then we'll also wind up doing a schedule preview with some predictions. We're going to decide kind of how to divide that up. We like the structure we had last year, but we don't want it to feel too samey. And so we're going to think of some ways to kind of flip some things on their head while still talking about the nitty gritty of the roster. Still a lot of questions to answer. And from my perspective, we've got a whole season to answer them, not just a fall camp, not just a game 1, game 2. And so we'll try to set the big picture stuff up.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for listening. We always appreciate it. Thank you for anyone who listened to my solo episode. I know hearing me talk for 45 straight minutes is nobody's favorite thing in the world. So I appreciate anyone who listened and had comments. It was awesome to do it. We're going to have Daniel do his own. I will. I don't know if he'll do a solo pod, but he's going to do his own. And then we're going to maybe, I think that's a good bye week topic. Maybe a good bye week topic. So excited for the upcoming season. We're going to do some preview stuff starting next week. Appreciate you guys and go Vols.